We all kind of became immediate friends. We were back and forth, and because of the way my speech was received, and they all knew how it was, they were extremely kind to me and warm and friendly. And I wondered really, what's going on there. And I had to keep my feet on the ground. But I was grateful. But the one I wanted to talk to was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I liked his style of speech. I liked the way he handled himself. He was the oldest of all of us. Well, when I was a senior in high school, Dr. Peale published a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. I remember my wife's parents discussing that during a time I happened to be in the house. I avoided going in the house as much as possible, by the way. I've mentioned that because I was intimidated they might ask me something, and I'd stutter in front of them. But so that book was a colossal hit. So now a breakfast was arranged between the two of us. And this particular breakfast meant a lot to me. I wondered what he would say, and I wondered what I would ask him. But I knew one thing: he would have to make the first play. He would have to speak first, not me. He would. This is Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I'm just Doug Snar. I'm just a kid, basically, compared to him. I'm green as grass. He is the pro's pro. But he spoke in a way that was deliberate. He spoke with authority. The nature of how he uttered the words, you could just tell, and his resonance in his voice was, I think, wonderful. Dr. Peale, just the way he handled himself on the platform, behind the microphone, the sound of his voice, his depth of understanding. And he had a manner in which he could take a complex concept and simplify it so that everyone could understand it. Whether you're an adult or whether you're a child, basically. You could understand Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. This was a pro's pro. Well, now we're having breakfast. Now, I'm kind of, frankly, a little bit, if not a lot, intimidated by the whole event. He asked to have breakfast with me. So that put added pressure. But I was excited about it because of who he was. And that book, The Power of Positive Thinking. So there we sit. And he says, I want you to know one thing, Mr. Snar. I was impressed by that, Mr. Snar. So he was very much a gentleman and respectful. I wrote the definitive book on positive thinking, but you gave the definitive speech on positive thinking. You did, not me. And I wanted you to know how I feel about you. And that was quite an incredible achievement. Well, he was very warm and extremely affable. He then says, I know you're a Mormon. You're from Salt Lake City. I want to tell you a story about my relationship with Mormons. Well, I was interested. I became very sick. And this was a number of years ago. And the doctors told me that I'm not going to make it. And I just kept getting more and more sick. And finally it came down to the realization that the only way that I'm going to live, and I felt I had more to do in this life, was I would have to receive divine intervention from God. But that reality of what I had to receive, how do I obtain divine intervention from God? I'm a minister. He says, I'm from the Dutch Reformed Church. I probably have the most successful congregation in the Marble Arch Church in Manhattan. And those that come are very, very regarded, highly regarded, respected, and very wealthy people. And they're very faithful, and they come regularly. But he says, I'm going to die. So I ask myself this one question. Where is the priesthood? Because my study of the scriptures tell me that in order to get this blessing that I need, divine intervention, I got to go where the priesthood is. And he says, I concluded the only place on this earth where the priesthood resides is in the Mormon church. So I picked up the phone and I phoned your prophet, David O. McKay. I told him my situation, asking him, would he give me a blessing that I might live? And he agreed. So I flew from New York to Salt Lake City. They had an automobile there and an apostle there to greet me and to bring me on into your church headquarters. Now I'm in the office of David O. McKay. Now there was one other man there. His name was Brown. I said, would that be Hugh B. Brown, or can you remember? He said, that sounds about right. I think that's who it was. And President McKay expressed great gratitude that I would come to him, and he felt that I had honored him by being there. But I felt just the opposite. It was my privilege. He explained that the blessing is in two parts. That one has to anoint first. That is where the oil, the consecrated oil, explained that to me, how the oil is consecrated, and that by a blessing, and that President Hugh B. Brown, who was the first counselor in the first presidency, would anoint me with the consecrated oil, And he put his hands on my head after rubbing the oil into my head. And he gave me, and it was a very short a blessing, but very right to the point, and that I made it clear that I had received the anointing of the oil as part of the total blessing. And then President McKay then took over. He explained he's going to seal the anointing. He put his hands on my head. And once those hands reached the top of my head, I felt going through me a feeling I'd never felt before in my life. It was a feeling that was so sublime and beautiful and a feeling of encouragement. And then the words came forth. And he blessed me, calling upon the Lord, making it very clear that the Lord would extend, hopefully, the blessing to me, not him. He was the conduit between me and God. But that the blessing would come from God himself in blessing me. And I've never felt such wonder and power come into me, as if all of this evil that was within me, that was causing me to die, was purged, and I was cleansed and purified from that negative influence that was killing me, that the doctors could not address themselves to. Now, Doug, I just wanted you to know that story about me in relationship to your church. Now, he gave a speech in the Marble Arch Church, which he sent me a copy of, and I have just downstairs. It's still, I got to get this thing converted to a DVD disc and not in just the tape only. Of a speech that he gave regarding two people. The first was Donald Trump, who is one of the people that come to his church on a regular basis, and how miraculous Donald Trump's life has been. But then he told the story of a speech that he had heard by Douglas D. Snar on positive thinking. And he reiterated that speech, the details of that speech, somewhat in his speech to his congregation. Now, I've just kind of kept that in a little format of the tape and never done anything with it. And I think this is about the first time I've discussed it with anyone who was right today about him giving that talk on me. But to think he was that thoughtful and kind to send that to me, I didn't even know he even given a talk on me. And I was overcome by that.